You know what, I'm not even going to put any effort into prefacing this review. We're going to be talking about Octopath Traveller. I mean, it's a game, it's on Switch. We go through way too many Switch games. I'm here joined with Jason because the official Switch... Could you stop clicking, please? Alright, more into it. Octopath Traveller is a game. It is a JRPG by Acquire, the people well known for games like Arquebus Beat and Arquebus Strip, and published by Square Enix. It tells the tale.
It's a bizarre combo. Let's just call that out right now. A lot of these big companies seem to be hiring a lot of smaller Japanese developers to make their games. Spike Chunsoft are doing all the Jump games. You've got Acquire. Even Arc System Works are doing all these games as well. And obviously they're more focusing on the fighters because they've got Guilty Gear and BlazBlue. But it just seems to be a lot of these bigger companies are hiring the smaller, well-known developers. I guess they know that the team will work on it. It can be a licensed title that's separate for their properties, and it's how they can pay for their next wave of title. And it's a really interesting mix.
Yeah, and it's a massive far cry to how the Japanese development cycle was 10 years ago. Now, a lot of these big companies are starting to put a lot more stock into some of these smaller studios. So Octopath Traveller, it follows the tale of 8 different people from all walks of life. Hex Octo, exactly. And it chronicles a fair few people such as warriors, such as people who want to vow for revenge, people who are apothecaries who just want to see, who just don't want to see the world burn. They really want to kind of help out in any way, shape, or form they can. And I still think it's I think it's a fantastic mix. It's very similar to games like Legend of Legacy for people who have played the 3DS game, and even Live Alive. So for people who played the Japan-only exclusive that came out on the SNES many years ago, it takes a lot of cues from that.
So, and it seems to be a very old-school game. And I guess that's part of the larger conversation around that kind of stuff. It plays it pretty straight with its combat style. It plays it pretty straight with everything. The main thing that it does that helps it kind of transcend where it sits is its storylines, and it's a unique kind of way of doing it. Here are these 8 characters, and we're used to having ensemble casts. We're used to having, Final Fantasy games where you start off as your main character, and by the end of it, you've got, a party of 12 people. But this sounds like it's different. This sounds like it is literally these kind of 8 distinct stories, like kind of a little bit Guy Ritchie, Guy Ritchie.
Yes. So in this case with Octopath Traveller, the way the narrative goes is that everyone has their own separate arcs, and they all come together to form this one just linear narrative right at the end. And there's certain parts where you travel to all different parts of the universe where everyone has their own arc, and it continues on from there. And once you get like a hefty party, you kind of get a good mix of different characters. Each one of them have their own abilities outside of battle. So for example, the dancer using her womanly charms to allure people to join to their party, like temporary minions, basically. Apothecaries who can provide first aid to people without utilizing any curative items, or can utilize different alchemy spells to actually throw at enemies. Or
it sounds almost a little bit Banner Saga-y in the sense like you collect fighters, you add vowels, all that kind of stuff, and it still takes part of like a larger complex, because that is the thing with Banner Saga. There's like 3 or 4 stories going on at once, and each party has different things. So I guess maybe it's kind of their twist on that style.
Definitely, and I think it's less of a gimmick in terms of everyone has their own things, like the thief can pick locks, all that sort of stuff, and it encourages exploration by going back to places you never were before. However, I think the gimmick is less to do with the combat or these unique features, but more to do with the actual art style itself.
Which makes it very old school in that sense. Because that was always the thing. Like, we had generations of games, and so obviously we had arcade games where you put 20 cents in every time. Well, 20 cents, that's how old I am.
Yes.
20 cents in every time to play the game, right? And then that moved on to home consoles, and they realized that those experiences don't work on home consoles because, like, people will pay once and that's it. So they had to find a way to do it. So what they did was they made JRPGs. And this was where JRPGs got their start, was long narrative-driven games, because we were driving that. So that's where a lot of the standard, it kind of didn't matter about having tropey / very easy to do gameplay, because you were there for the story, and that was why people were paying the $60 in the first place. But later on, obviously, that doesn't work anymore because we live in a very dynamic world. Games are cheaper. There's a lot of competition. So a lot of the JRPGs that we've known in a lot of the series have changed how they do things. And it sounds to me like Octopath is very much gone back to that old school style of, here is this unique story we're told. Here are these, like, and let's be real, they're great visuals. They're like, again, it's Square Enix. You expect their physics to be good.
Being a Japanese studio, like they definitely, like the Japan, a lot of Japanese studios tend to have a knack for utilizing Unreal Engine in the weirdest ways possible. And they generally use a lot of blur, a lot of fore and background features, as opposed to just having like really amazing, just kind of.
And this was very
models.
prevalent in Unreal 3. Like Unreal 3, so Unreal 3, obviously we had Suda51 made all these games on Unreal 3 from Shadows of the Damned onwards.
Yes.
There were other studios who did games on it. They did Quantum Theory, which was like legally distinct from Gears.
Yep.
And
There's
then
Guilty
obviously
Gear
Guilty
Xside,
Gears,
which is probably the most unique sense, using lighting instead of dynamically utilizing it every single frame, which is absolutely amazing. But moving back to Octopath, I think it kind of contributes to that bigger question of style over substance. And this is one of the very few JRPGs where I can sit there and go, its combat is solid. It's not going to be groundbreaking, or it's going to set the world on fire in particular.
It's a method for progression.
But it is definitely a method for progression. And a lot of these kinds of games with the aesthetic of, like, like Bravely Default, for example, and really kind of twisting and bending the norms of turn-based combat. It's going to be interesting to see in a few years' time, especially in the realms of JRPGs, to see how it really kind of goes. And
whether we do find that they more regress back to that old style.
Absolutely. So it's really kind of converging, like less converging points, but just kind of fork in the road. And it's going to be interesting to see in the next future. And Octopath is definitely that catalyst